what we did. But for the Sunday show, let's respect the clock. The production clock. And trust me, but next week Saturday I'll spill all the tea. So for those who want to know, trust me, you will know by next week what I'm actually going to be doing today. It's going to be a good one though. Trust, it's one of those adventures. It's like those little adventures. And ask Nombuyisela about them. They can get pretty wild. 8:16 Central African time. We have the Mind Matter Summit coming up on the 4th of September, which is also Beyonce's birthday. It's just felt like throwing it in there. So it's going to be the Beyonce of all events. And we can't wait to talk about our minds, our mental well-being. But I don't know why I am called to call out all the leaders, managers, people who are leading a team, talking to a team, instructing and delegating. Because most of the people, when they talk about mental health, that's where a lot of the problems are. You spend about like 8-9 hours a day at work, and you spend the other 12 hours literally thinking about work. So I feel that we need to unpack, the role of, the jobs and the environments in which we work in a little bit further. But we are joined on the line by Kanchana Moodliar, who is the founder of Mind Matters Summit. Kanchana, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you.
So let's talk about this. I mean, this is Mind Matters Summit. Let's talk about the Mind Matters. I mean, putting it all together, the curation of it. Why was it important?
I think mental health is the biggest subject of our day at the moment. And as we know, stress is the pandemic of our time, right?
Yeah.
And we learned how to deal with it. And I was lucky enough to get into this very early in my life through becoming a yoga teacher, in my early 20s, and then deep diving into many, many practices. And then obviously going through a near-death experience when I was young, helped me to be able to shape how my thoughts were actually firing and wiring. And I learned a lot about the brain and neuroscience and all of that. And over the years, I started realizing that the discoveries that are coming out are so profound that everybody needs to know about them and understand them. And there are world-renowned speakers coming into South Africa, like Mo Goddard and Tara Swart and all of them, coming in to tell us about this latest research on the mind. Now, what we know is that the brain is actually an ancient system. It's been in us for the longest time and hasn't evolved with the times that we are facing. So the only way that we can evolve the brain is by doing the practices, rewiring thinking for the times that we're in. And it's actually why we see the level of anxiety, depression, suicide right now is because the software and the hardware are not really aligning. And we need to understand that our mental well-being is just as important as our physical well-being, but we need to understand it, grab a hold of it, and be able to be in touch with it so that we can use the right tools to direct our minds in the right direction. Because when we direct it in the right direction with our minds, our entire lives can change. And that's what Mind Matters is going to be all about.
As you were speaking about the hardware and software, for some reason I had this picture in my mind. I think our bodies give us a lot of grace that I don't think we deserve. I mean, when you think about the average 20-year-old or in varsity who's probably exploring now, could literally go on a 3-day bender of drinking hard liquor and wake up the Monday morning feeling absolutely fine, right? And you go through that life thinking that it's normal, and our bodies really do give ourselves a lot of grace. So in your mind, there are these little changes, these thoughts, these patterns that happen, and you just go about life, and you're not really picking up on the issues. It's kind of like when you need a software update and you keep saying ignore or remind later, as you were using that example. Where do you think we spend most of our time, and why is it easy to ignore?
I think it's because we in this day-to-day mode, of doing and always in this stress and survival mode every single day. I want to do more. I want to always be in action.
Yeah.
But when you spend time actually rewiring the programs of what you actually gained when you were between the years of 1 and 7, because that's when when the program starts. if you are able to rewrite the program, you don't have to live in those hormones of stress and survival all the time, because our minds actually are there to help us to be able to be free and abundant and peaceful and joyful and find meaning in life. But if we direct our minds in a way that is through survival and anger and hatred and stress, we will go in that direction. But we have the power to rewire our minds by the thoughts that we fire, by how we understand what's happening in the mind, by the tools and practices that we do every single day. A simple thing like deep breathing. The breath is everything. If you don't breathe, you die. So if you just take that little secret weapon and you learn how to do breath work, and you take a deep breath every single day, like a few breathing practices before you start any single exercise that you go in, you will automatically see a shift in how you think versus how you currently do things, which I think right now, we know this, is this reactive mode that society is in rather than this responsive mode. And we get into this point where we go, oh, I'm going to react to that person. And then suddenly it's escalated to this point where you can't even understand how you got there, but you could have actually de-escalated it by focusing on the breath, by taking a little pause and changing everything in that moment. So becoming aware of what's in your mind and how your mind works and what its triggers are will help you change how you navigate relationships in life. And that's exactly how it is in your physical well-being, right? If you don't maintain a good physical body, and you don't exercise, you don't eat the right things, you know that you're going to be down the road of diabetes or heart disease or any of that. We know that for sure, right? So it's exactly the same with your mind. A lot of times when we don't grab a hold of it, we end up in anxiety or depression or different types of things that are happening to us in society right now, because we haven't fully understood what is going on in the mind and what's going on in the brain. And those are two completely different concepts. And we'll be talking about all of this at Mind Matters to help people understand the fundamentals of this shift that we need to make.
I want us to take a short break. When we come back, I want to ask a layered question, and if you allow me, because I feel like leadership is one of the either contributing factors to the reason why a lot of people are struggling with their mental health, or on the flip side, a lot of leaders are struggling with their mental health, thus struggling to actually perform as functional leaders. But while we ponder on those thoughts, I want us to take a short break. It is at 8:23 Central African time. We'll be right back.
9 to 12 midday Central Time. On the move with Palisa Tau and Benjamin Mushatami.
Should influencers be expected to be impactful in society? If there is a social or societal conversation that goes up, should we be waiting eagerly to hear what the influencers have to say?
They are more than just entertainers. They are thought leaders to some certain degree. They influence culture, they influence people's thought processes, they set trends, they shape opinions of people. And the sad reality is, although a lot of them don't want to accept it, I think we're getting better with them realizing that embarking in that journey and in that space comes with a certain level of responsibility.
I see it differently in that, professionals are already good at their job, but there is an optionality that they might have to use the position that they hold in society to be able to deliver a message. This year you made the example of actors and actresses. So the same could apply to a sportsman. Just because someone's good at soccer doesn't mean that they have to have an influence over society from a specific standpoint.
Keeping you on the know and on the move. The Oasis with Nsako Mhlanga.
The conversation continues. It is at 8:25 Central African time, and we are talking about the Mind Matters Summit with the founder, Kanchana Moodliar. And, I'm glad we got a little bit of time to kind of ponder on that, because it is a little bit of a layered question here. And I think I want to start with the role of leadership and the role of the workplace to our mental health. A lot of our teams, spend time at work. They give themselves to work. They're trying to improve their lives. It's where their financial abundance comes from. What do you hear, especially, what do you experience a lot with the people who struggle with their mental health as a result of a negative impacting workplace?
Yeah. So environment is everything. So what we know from all our studies is that your environment actually dictates how you behave, how you become, how you act, how you feel. And if you are in an environment that is constantly giving you negativity, anxiety, pressure, and stress, you will not perform at your optimal. Humans are meant to perform from a place of calm. We perform best when we are calm, when we are actually playful, and when we are happy. That's when we become the most creative. Now, leaders, unfortunately, are under, how do we say, they're under the gun to be able to deliver. And the only way that they have understood to deliver is through fear. So leaders have learned that from, again, an unevolved software that has come in, that when you have to struggle, you have to fear, you have to put pressure, you have to make people do something. But if you get into a position where you can lead somebody with a vision and a purpose, and you focus on how you cultivate an environment where people are not constantly stressed, not constantly fearful, this is proven. They will deliver 100 times better than they currently deliver, right?
Yeah.
Because they are acting from a place of creativity. Now, do you want a whole lot of creative people, or a whole lot of people operating from fear and stress and then make all the mistakes in the way work happens? And what we find in workplaces is that we have this old school model that has been taught, and your boss taught you that, so you do exactly the same thing. And we need to rewire our brains to this new era of what's happening. Right now, we're finding that Gen Z understands it, and the leadership teams are not basically aligning on this. But fundamentally, everybody wants the same thing. We all want to deliver a fantastic product at the end of the day. We all want to make sure that we earn the money that we have in the way that makes us happy and makes us feel fulfilled and gives us meaning in life. The leader wants that, so does the person who is at work. But we haven't aligned on how we get there. And this is what this is about right now, is about understanding that humans deliver better when they're not under stress and pressure. We find this where a boss will hear, oh, that guy's doing really well at work. You ask him, how's his day? Oh, it's fantastic. I'm having such a good day. I'm able to do A, B, and C. And, I'm having a good time at work. And the boss gets triggered by that and says, hey, that guy's not getting enough work. So puts and more and more. And that's when you get this burnout, because, burnout is about the fact that you have the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? So it's constant stress, until one day the straw completely breaks the camel's back, and you're sitting there with people then who have burnout and then can't make it to work. Now, what's the point of that? We have the highest rate of absenteeism at the moment for people in corporates who are complaining about burnout, stress, depression. Why is it that we are creating environments that are stressing people out to this level? We don't need to. We can operate from what is called a growth code, not fear codes. And South Africa, you'll hear about it at Mind Matters, massive study done on what are the growth codes that we fundamentally move by. And one of the big things is that we all are about impact. We all want to make impact in our jobs. Even personally, we want to make impact. Whereas in the rest of the world, a big part of what they want to do is have joy and meaning in their life. So South Africans have this impact mentality. We want to change things. We want to make things happen. But we are not often given the freedom and the ability to do that in our. So it actually stifles us when we're not allowed to have the impact that we want, because we are a society of change makers. So it's interesting that when we operate from our growth codes that help us to be able to live abundantly and in peace, we flourish. But currently, when we operate in this stress and pressure and negativity and constant toxic environments, we don't perform as well as we do. And so leaders need to rewire how they think about this. And there's going to be a huge conversation around corporate leaders at Mind Matters, coming from very different angles, helping people to understand what are the new methodologies and the way that they need to empower people for not only empower their teams, but empower themselves with this new thinking of how we get teams to perform a lot better.
It's just treating people like they're people.
Humanizing, right? People as humans.
Yeah, it's incredibly low vibrational, because even business, it's energy. Corporate spaces are energy. It is incredibly low vibrational for you to be a leader who does not know how to encourage people. And it doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, you could be 65, but if someone says, "Hey, great job! You did a really great job at that." That's all it takes sometimes. It's just to say, you know what? You did a spectacular job. getting this thing done. Positive reinforcement never stops. For the fact that people still take compliments even as late as 80, 90 years old should tell you a lot.
Yeah.
But now, as a leader, how do you navigate the mental health part of it? Because, it's the one thing this year, in fact, I think all my life, to be honest, being firstborn, and then you step into a position of leadership. So you've already been leading at home and then leading there. There's a lot of neglect that happens with leaders. People end up neglecting their leaders because, they expect them to kind of have it all figured out. How do leaders now kind of encapsulate their mental health, but still also playing the role of being a phenomenal leader?
I think as leaders, we need to be ahead of the game with what's happening in the world in this particular sphere, especially. So attending these type of summits to hear what's the latest and the newest, going into your own deep high performance practices, putting yourself into the line of understanding what the latest research is in this field, because there's tons of studies at the moment. You don't have excuses anymore, because this is also part of your role. There's the difference between leaders and managers. A manager is just trying to get output out of you and make sure that you get the work done. A leader is trying to inspire you into action. They are trying to be there to help you develop. They are your mentor. They are people who you should aspire to. If I look at you and I go, you're my leader, but like you're not coping, how am I going to cope? Because you're the one who's actually taking me into this sphere of that I want to understand, of realms that I've never been in before. And I want you to help me to get there. But if you haven't inspired me to get in there as a leader, why then should I follow you? Because leader is the one that we follow, right? So a big part of it is leaders need to take control of also their own self-development, their own nourishment, because you can't, as we say, pour from an empty cup. And people realize that very, very quickly. We live in a world right now where we have leaders that people don't look up to. And that's the problem in the world. We don't have inspirational leaders globally, locally, in offices. You hear it everywhere that you go. Everyone's on the struggle. But if a leader took the time to develop themselves, understand the tools, and then pass it on to everybody else, it'll change everything in that entire team and in how they work going forward. Because what we tend to do is think that everything is about the work. But when we understand that providing the environment for people to work, that work will be 10 times more, it'll be exponential in how they deliver. So it's all about nurturing yourself in order to nurture others.
And what can we expect? What are some of the details of the summit, so that those who are within Cape Town or planning to travel are able to note it down?
So it's going to be a wonderful day, starting from the morning with Olympic athletes. The first panel is called Being Unstoppable. It's Tatiana Smith, who's 28 years old and had to retire at the top of her game. How do you go from being the world's best to now suddenly, okay, what do I do next? Lyra, who is a world-class multi-platinum singer, had a stroke, came back even stronger, is doing even better. She is going to be also delivering a concert the day before. It's going to be Andrea Van Acker. She is written a book called The Human Growth Code. And she is basically going to be talking about growth codes versus fear codes. And that particular panel is all about resilience and how do we stand up when pressure is hitting us as hard as we possibly can feel. When a stroke takes you out and your career and your life could have been lost, but you come back from it even stronger. And as a nation in South Africa, we're an extremely resilient nation. But these are the tools that help you to get there. You've got corporate panels that are going to be talking about these leadership skills that people need. And it's a massive topic right now. You have to understand what's happening in your environment. You have to understand what's happening with yourself as a leader and what you need to subscribe to in order for you to raise the bar right now, because your teams are expecting it. We've then got the amazing Mo Goddard headlining. I think everybody's waiting for him to come to South Africa, right? It's the first time. He's the ex-Google, ex-director, and Diary of a CEO, most viral podcast, talking about AI and becoming unstressable. Is it even possible for us to be unstressable? And he has a formula for this, and he's teaching us this formula while we're there. And then we end off with Dr. Tara Swart, who is a neuroscientist and somebody talking about topics of abundance through neuroscience. How do we live a life that we dream of by harnessing the power of our thoughts. And she is there to show you how your thoughts actually do this, how we are wiring our brains for a life of our dreams when we do a vision board. Well, she calls it an action board. And how do we actually engineer our lives in the direction of these dreams? So it's going to be super, super interesting. We've got Jason and Donovan Goliath also. Both of them are in the mental well-being space, the happiness economy, and working with different brands in the space to be able to bring mental well-being to men as well. So it's going to be an absolutely powerful one-day summit that will rewire your brain, give you the tools that you need, and allow you to rethink how you move forward in the future, especially with the world of AI coming in. It's believed that if you as a human haven't actually gone into your humanity and tried to get into these growth codes and fundamentally grow yourself, we're going to be facing a lot of fear in the future. So how do we get those tools to help us to cope so that we're not overwhelmed and stressed as the future gets to us much faster than we thought it was ever going to come?
Amazing stuff. It was an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and we look forward to the Mind Matter Summit. And it's going to be amazing. And the Diary of CEO, I'm like literally buzzing, right? I'm like, okay, the cheapest ticket to Cape Town, because wow.
Yes.
That's going to be
come. Amazing.
insane. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing what, the Mind Matter Summit is going to do for, the general person who's just trying to seek better alternatives to their mental health.
Thank you so much.
Amazing stuff. It is at 8:37 Central African time, and that was a Kanchana Moodliar, who's the founder of Mind Matter Summit, talking to us about the summit this year. It's happening on the 4th of September, 2025. I see Thames is coming up, and I always enjoy when her music is on. She just gets me in like this nice groove, and I feel like let's get everyone into a nice groove. Also, let me know what you're having for your Sunday lunch. It's gonna be a nice one. I know that not all of us are churchers. Some people are maybe the readers, the newspapers with the gown in the morning. But the Sunday lunch is very, very important. How many colors are going to be on that plate? I hope there's something purple there, something green, something blue, something for you. It is 8:38 Central African time.
The Oasis. With Nsako Mhla.